Welcome to a very special edition of the New Wave Music Show with your host, DJ Sandro. On today's show, we have an interview with none other than Mr. Andy McCluskey, lead singer of Orchestral Manoeuvres in the Dark. OMD will be touring Australia in February 2025, and of course they released their latest album, Baja Staircase, in October 2023. In today's interview, we will be talking about Baja Staircase, in addition to their upcoming tour in Australia next year in February 2025, plus a whole lot of other things. Let me bring you none other than Mr. Andy McCluskey.
So,
thank you.
Thank you for speaking to, sending a message and agreeing to meet with me and chat to your Australian fans, because it's been a long time. I'm not sure the last time you did Australian press was, but more importantly, the recent news, which was announced on Facebook about an upcoming Australian tour, has us all very excited. So thank you.
Listen, I'm delighted. You are the first person I've talked to from press or radio. So I'm hopefully, we're going to make a lot of noise about this, because it's almost 40 years. I think it's been a very, very long time since we played in Australia. And so it's about bloody time we got back there.
Really excited, and we'll get into that, time permitting. So first of all, I wanted to talk to you about Baja Staircase. So that was released on the 27th of October 2023, and it was your first album in 6 years since The Punishment of Luxury. It got some really great reviews. Record Collector and Classic Pop magazines named it the best new album release in their respective November 2023 issues, while other outlets considered it to be OMD's finest work since the mid-1980s. The record debuted at number 2 on the UK albums chart, becoming the group's highest charting studio album in your home country, the UK, and matching the peak of the best of OMD in 1988. It also topped the UK indie charts. Some other critics were really generous, and I can understand why. They said the knack for crafting brilliant electronic pop remains intact. Each of the 12 tracks is perfectly executed, arranged, and produced. Another critic said, with a new album as enthralling as anything they've ever recorded, striking a balance between pristine electro-pop songcraft and the looply inclinations that once fueled dazzle ships. So when you hear all that, how does it feel to have critics compare your 14th and most recent record to some of your best work of the 80s?
It's rewarding, and it's, you know what? We worked really hard on the album, but you never know how it's going to be received. By the time you finished it, you're so close to it, it's difficult to be objective, but we had a good feeling that we'd done great work, because it had, as you said, it took 6 years. It had taken a long while. I mean, most of it was done during COVID, to be honest, because there was nothing else to do. But that was good. So we spent a long time making sure that it was as good as it could be. As Paul likes to say, we do not release an album just so that we have a new T-shirt logo for a tour. But it was, I think what we said all along when we reformed was, if we make new material, it has to be great. The last thing you want is a band that's been around for decades that you used to like releasing a really poor album, and you think, oh man, they've really let themselves down here. I'm not going to buy that, because it's just a bad pastiche. They haven't put any effort in, and there's no quality songwriting. And also then you have the dilemma is, oh, are they going to play that live? Maybe I'll go to the toilet if they play the new tracks, so it's, you really don't want people to dislike your work. And so I think there was a lot of hard work went into Baja Staircase, so it was rewarding to have great reviews.
Yeah, it's truly a great listen. It's OMD, but it sounds contemporary, and it's just a really fantastic listen. You mentioned something there which I was going to ask you about next. So from reading some press and reading some stuff about the making of the album, this came from the time when you were stuck at home during COVID and were bored, so how did this all come about? Like, were you literally stuck at home like we were in Melbourne in COVID lockdowns and thinking of something to do? Because I've read other artists say that it had the opposite effect on them. They couldn't be creative at all. It didn't conjure up any creative juices for them. So I just wanted to ask you a little bit about that and how that worked for you.
I think I've made the analogy that it was a bit like being a teenager back when I lived at home, and my father was always out at the greyhounds because he was addicted to gambling. And so the kids and my mum were sat at home, and if she put something on the TV, and we only had one TV in the house that I didn't want to watch, then there was nothing else to do but go to my room and either paint a painting or write a song. And so that was what COVID was like. There was nothing else to do. You could not go out. You couldn't meet people. So literally, I was sat in the room that I'm talking to you from now. This is my programming room. You can see the art behind me, but actually in front of me is all the speakers and the screens and things. Everything is in the box. Everything's in a big computer at my feet. And I just came into this room and okay, open up the computer. What have you got in here that, you know, is work in progress but hasn't been finished yet, but you think there might be some solution if you work hard on it. And I just started going through bits and pieces that I had, ideas that I'd sort of been formulating but had never turned into a song, and just said, well, now is the time to be creative because you can't do anything else, Andrew. And I found a few things that Paul had given me over the last few years that I managed to work up into songs. I managed to turn some of my ideas into actual songs, things like kleptocracy, which I'd been wanting to write a song about for years and hadn't got around to. So just all in all, yeah, I was one of the fortunate ones, I guess, that I utilized the time to be creative, and it worked for me.
Yeah. So how did the creative process work for you in the sense of, did you create the tracks at home yourself and then send them to Paul, or how did that work this time? Because I imagine in the past you may have collaboratively worked in the same space or shared the same space so how did it work this time?
When it comes to writing, we've always said that we prefer to be in the same room because we bounce off each other. You know, this time we were unable to. Paul managed to get himself locked down in his house in the south of France, which is very nice. Before he'd even bought it, I think he was renting it. So it was like, you know, not a bad place to get locked down. I was stuck in a suburb of Liverpool. So we couldn't meet up. We could not meet up. And also Paul also during COVID moved house 3 times and became a father again at 61. So he had kind of other things on his mind.
He's a braver man than I am.
As you can imagine. Yeah, indeed. Rather him than me, but there you go. So I was stuck with things that he'd given me in the past. There were fortunately 2 pieces of music that he did manage to deliver to me, which became the backing music to Anthropocene and Look at You Now. And so then with those, I was able to create lyrics on top of them. But we both work on computers. We have the same computer system. They are almost identical, so that we can send a file to each other, a complete Pro Tools file, which is the program we use, and it just loads up, and you go, boom, everything's there. All of the plugins, all of the effects, because literally everything is in the box. If I just turn my computer, there is my microphone, and just down there is my plugin for my bass guitar. They are the only things that are acoustic or, you know, real instruments in inverted commas. Everything else is in the computer. All the drums, all the keyboards, all of the effects, it's all in the computer. And so it just means that, you know, I can send it to Paul, and if I've recorded my vocals and the bass, then he'll just get audio of those. So it's remarkable what you can do in a small room these days. But Paul just happens to have a fantastic recording studio in the basement of his house, so he can mix in his room. I can't mix in here. I wouldn't trust the speakers. To be honest, I wouldn't trust my ears either. He's much more objective than me.
Does it blow? I mean, when you were just speaking, does it blow your mind? Like as a synthwave musician, and where you started like 40, 45 years ago, and the amount of technology or the amount of equipment you've used to what you've just described now in terms of what you're using, does it blow your mind at any point in thinking, we used to have a room full of everything, and here I am today with just my computer and my microphone? I mean, I'm ready.
It's been a long journey. I mean, Paul and I have been writing together for almost 50 years. The band is now 45 and a half years old. And actually, we started with nothing, then we had everything, and now we've got a really minimal setup again because it's all in the computer. I mean, I'm just trying to see behind me. Yeah, behind me, there's a synth there on the. I don't know if you can see that. That is the very first synth we ever bought from my mother's mail order catalogue. We started out as OMD with no synthesizer. We were a synth band with no synthesizer. We had to borrow one off friends. We bought that, and it's a preset, and it's got little buttons on it, and it's like string one, string two, voice, brass one,
is
brass
that the
two.
famous?
Basically, they all sound the same. They all just go, eh. It's a horrible sounding synth, but it was the only one we could afford.
Is that the famous synth that I would have heard on either Electricity or Messages or anything like that?
That's the synth that played this, what sounds like a sequencer on Messages. It wasn't actually a sequencer. That's just a repeat.
Yeah.
We jammed down a key, put it on repeat, and then manually had to twist the octave selector. And it took us hours to do it because halfway through we get a glitch. You go, click, start again, So that, and of course, that is also the synth that when we'd recorded it and we finally spent about 3 hours recording the backing, Paul went to play the chords and went, Andy, it's not in G, it's in G sharp. And we looked at that synth and we went, oh my God, the pitch wheel was turned around. Right, sod it. It's staying in G sharp. We're not recording it again. It's the strange accident. So yeah, Messages used to be in G, but it's been in G sharp for the last 40 years.
Well, there you go. A really, really good story. So can you tell me some about some of the tracks on the album? I mean, I just really love it, and I've been listening to it endlessly. Two of my favorites on the if I have to pick two, because I like all the tracks, the title track Baja Staircase and Don't Go plus Verushka, if I've said it correctly. But Baja Staircase has you musing, because everyone needs a Baja Staircase, everyone gets a second chance, and all the world needs art and passion, Peri Ubu and the modern dance. And when I first heard that, and it's just always something that resonated with me, and I thought it's probably something that has come out of COVID, because we were all confined to our homes and had nothing to do except stay on our phones and not be very creative. But where did that come from, I suppose, being a bit of a fanboy?
Again, I am a huge art fan. I mean, before I accidentally became a musician, I was planning to go and do a fine art degree. I had a place, I took a gap year, and that's when OMD started, and I never went back. My particular fascination is mid-20th century art.
Right.
So from Cubism through to, well, I used to be into abstract expressionism, but it doesn't float my boat anymore. So the Bauhaus, which was an art school in Germany, from 1919 to 1933. I love their, first of all, the ethos, which is practical application of art, not just art for art's sake, and also I love the simplicity and the clean lines of Bauhaus. So it's a personal fascination of mine. But sitting in lockdown when our government, and I don't know what it was like in Australia, but our government financed furlough for almost everybody, but not for people in the creative arts.
I was like that.
And
here
there was a notorious poster they put up at the time that said, today she's a ballerina, next year she could be an IT expert, basically saying, creative arts is a waste of time, get a real job. And so to a lesser extent, I kind of felt like the Bauhaus was shut down in 1933 by the Nazis. Right. So I kind of felt like at a time of difficulty, when we all need, listen, we need food, we need a roof over our heads, but we need to feed our souls as well. And in difficult times, art and passion is what feeds your soul. It can keep you going in difficult times. It can inspire you and enthrall you, educate you, and make you feel happy. Give you something you don't get through verbalizing or reading. And I just thought, now is the time we need our art even more than in the easy times. And here's the government basically underfunding it. So I wasn't quite saying that the Conservative government in England was like the Nazis shutting down the Bauhaus, but I was making some analogies, shall we say. And of course, when you're a songwriter, sometimes you go places you've got no idea. So I wrote, Everyone needs a Bauhaus staircase. Everyone gets a second chance. I've got no idea where that phrase came from. I don't know what it means. But then, of course, I had to get a rhyme at the end of the line.
All right.
And I was a huge, huge fan in the 70s of an American experimental band called Perubu, who most people have never heard of.
Well, I'll be honest, I did have to Google.
Yeah, so I went, Perubu and the Modern Dance. I love that album. Brilliant, it rhymes. It's in, you know. So, that was me being a fanboy in my own lyric.
Yeah, fair enough. And Don't Go, that is like, I don't know, it's pure. For me, it's like really reminiscent of some of your great works from the 80s, that kind of pop, synth pop mastery. And where did that come from? What place what was the creative spark?
That song is one of the best songs we've ever written. It has a kind of soaring melancholy. Which is a description of our music that somebody wrote once, and I'm having that. That's beautiful. Soaring melancholy. It is melancholy, but it's inspiring and uplifting as well, whilst being sad. We wrote that originally to be a B-side on Punishment or Luxury, and quite quickly, even though it wasn't finished, I said to Paul, we need to sit on this. This is too good. This could be a great song. We had the sequencer, and I just had the da 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 da. Hadn't got the rest of the lyric. I said, there's something in this. Let's wait. And then I got the main lyric. Paul got the big middle eight melody, and then what often happens, which is incredible, is when we go to the end of the song, my verse vocal and his middle eight melody sit together and weave in and out of each other for the ending. And I absolutely think that is one of the best songs we've ever written. And we will be playing. We're not going to play all of Bauhaus Staircase when we come to Australia, because I think if we've made people wait for 40 years, we better damn well play all the hits. But we will play Don't Go, because we believe it's one of the best things we ever wrote.
Yeah, I mean, I could ask you about every track, but because I like them all, I will ask you about Varushka, and then I'll ask you what your favorite tracks on the album are.
Okay. Varushka is one of the songs that Paul gave me some chords years and years ago. And it was one of the few things that I couldn't make into a song, and it sat in my computer. And then I think about 4 years, just before COVID, I got the chorus, and I thought, okay, but I could not for the life of me get the verse. And so I Googled the word Varushka, and it came up with an alternative spelling, which was more Germanic. And there was a film that was named after this model, and it was like one of the last kind of film noir films made in the 70s. And so I just went, oh, film noir, brilliant. Film noir, I can paint film noir scenes with my verse vocals. So, you know, headlights flash across a rain-soaked road and another stranger falling through it. I was just imagining film noir images, and that's how I built the song. And everybody loved that song so much. And then the video, people love the video so much. I mean, when we play that live, and again, we probably will play that in Australia, probably one of only about 3 Bauhaus tracks we'll play. We all come down the front in a row, and the screens behind us just have the big face.
Yes.
And it's a showstopper. You can see us start and people go, oh, they've all changed position. That was good. And then suddenly we know, we're not looking behind us. We know Varushka's face has come up on the screen behind us. Every camera comes up in the audience. It looks so good.
Yeah. Every track on the album is really great. I mean, I think it's maybe not worldwide, but was Kleptocracy was going to get released as a single. Was it this week or last week?
Kleptocracy is out next week. Yeah, as a hard copy. The video's been out for some time, but the hard copy just is coming out next week. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's great. So, what are some of your favorite tracks on the album, or maybe what are some of the tracks which were like children to you and took a long time to germinate over for you?
I've got to be honest with you, and I'm going to sound really egotistical and narcissistic now.
Yeah.
I have now listened to the album. When you first make it, I'm scared to listen to it in case I go, oh man, we should have changed this, we should have done that, or this could have been better. I have now listened to the album many times since it's been finished, And I really am very pleased with the job we did on it. I think every song works for me, but it should do, because we put our heart and souls into them, and we had enough time to craft them to make sure that they were good quality songs. I think sadly, a lot of bands, when they get a bit older, they want to tour. Their manager says, "Oh, well, a new album would be good because you can give it a new name," but they don't actually want to put the effort into making a very good album, and they do this kind of poor pastiche of their own sound, and they shouldn't do it. They shouldn't do it. It's bad. It's bad for themselves and it's bad for their fans. So again, I sound big-headed, but I believe we'd made a great album. We put heart and soul into that. I mean, I sat in this room day after day, month after month, crafting those songs. And so I'm very happy with every single one of them. I mean, there are 3 songs on the album that were written as love songs to people that I love very much.
Oh,
and I had to ask them for permission to put them on the album because they were actually gifts. And then I said, that song, can I put it on the OMD album? And they went, yeah, okay. And I promised all of them that I would never say who it was, so I can't say who it was.
You won't tell us who it's about, but will you tell us which 3 songs?
Yes, Aphrodite's favorite child, Where We Started, and Healing.
Okay. Yeah, the Healing. Yeah, I was listening. That's the last track on the album. Yes, and I was listening to that today. Mm-hmm. Yeah. No. Yeah. Okay. Fantastic. But it's interesting. So when you wrote those songs, you wrote those songs with people in mind, and they already existed, and then you went to them and said, "Well, actually, I want to put this on an album." So you'd already gifted them. Is that what you're saying? Wow.
Yeah. Where We Started and Aphrodite's were both. Where We Started is now 7 years old, and Aphrodite's is over 12 years old. They were both written as audio gifts to people that I love dearly. And then I had to go and ask for them back.
Oh, well, they
were very kind to say, okay, you can use my gift and make it public, but just don't say who it was for.
Oh, that's very nice of them. And I mean, it must be feel special or privileged to have a gifted artist produce a song for you and it be your own very thing, and then you share it with the world, and then when it gets played on the radio or when people.
But yeah, the funny thing is though that the people didn't want anybody to know who they were, which is fair enough. I don't mind keeping their privacy.
No, fair enough. So it's been more than 40 years since you visited Australia. I just wanted to clear up because I was doing some research. Was it 1987 you last toured, or was it before then? My math might be a little.
I think it was 87. 87.
1987. Do you have any recollections of that tour?
Yeah, I can remember quite a lot. I can remember. It was still in the days when Paul and I shared a room together. And his American wife, who was in California, could never get the time zones right and was always phoning him in the middle of the bloody night. It was before mobile phones, and I'd always just go, Paul, answer the bloody phone. I can remember that we seemed to spend a lot of time based in the Coogee Bay Hotel. And I think that was it 84 then, or was it 87 when we played there on New Year's Eve, and it was like the hottest I've ever been on stage. That's when I discovered the great Australian invention, the snail fan, that looks like an audio wedge, but it's actually kicking out cold air at you. Hallelujah for those things. That kept me alive. The only trouble was you couldn't leave the microphone. You couldn't move from side to side because you just were too hot. You wanted to stay in front of the fan. And yeah, lots of memories about just the. I mean, I can remember we played. Was it Newcastle Working Men's Club? And for some, I don't know what. There was only 37 people in the audience. All the others were massive sold out because that one just died a death for some reason. We also played someplace that was an old soldiers club, and I think they played the bloody national anthem at 6 o'clock every evening or something. Oh, wow. But they were very upset with me because I walked in wearing a green Chinese military hat with a red star on the front. And I think some of them had fought in Korea, and North Korea was sponsored by the Chinese. So I remember that clearly not being very well welcomed, but most of the time everything was great.
And do you recall where you played in Melbourne then? Do you recall?
We played a theatre.
Was it
I'm trying to remember what it
the
was
Palace
called.
Theatre?
That might have been it. It looks, I mean, the thing I remember about Melbourne, Sydney made me think of America. But Melbourne was just, I thought Melbourne was the most schizophrenic place I'd ever seen in my life, because it looked like England.
Yes.
The weather was more like England. The suburbs, the buildings. I mean, Melbourne may have changed since I've been there, probably has. But it looked like England. They had the Queen on the currency, but it sounded like Australia. And I just thought, this is kind of strange. This is weird, but it was, yeah. So I specifically remember that.
Yeah, it's a pretty cosmopolitan place. Having had a look at a recent set list from a show in the UK, I think it might have been in Leeds, that contained over 20 songs featuring tracks from Baja Staircase and your extensive catalogue. So if I'm wrong, tell me, but it looks like we'll get 2 hours of tunes when you come to Australia. Is that correct?
You get about 1 hour 45, yeah. As I said to you earlier, we feel that we owe it to the Australians to play all of the hits. Yeah. We're not coming to Australia to sell the Bauhaus Staircase album. We hope that the hardcore fans have already bought it. We're very proud of the tracks, and I think we will probably play. Thank you. We will probably play literally 3 or 4, and every other song will be a single.
Excellent.
Including we've been checking out our Australian chart success, including one song we might have to learn that we haven't played live in about 30 years. Yes, I can't tell you what it is, but it was a hit in Australia and nowhere else.
I think I can guess which one, but I won't spoil it. That'd be fantastic.
So yeah, we will basically be playing. We'll be playing about 17 singles.
Fantastic. So it'll be great. I look forward to it.
I think if you go and see a band that you like, you want to hear your favorite tracks. I mean, I know that this interview is now going to depress some of the hardcore fans who are going to go, God damn, they're not going to do a deep dive into all the strange B-sides and things like, well, no, because 99% of the audience want to hear the hits.
I know, which is
next time we come back, we might do some weirder stuff, but this time.
Okay. I hope so. So what I was going to say, can you share when you will be out in Australia, or is that still a closely guarded secret?
Okay. Listen, I think that all the information goes live on Monday, the 29th. And I don't know with regards to airing when you're going to air this.
It'll probably be after that date, but it'll be
okay. Well, then then fine. As long as you don't go telling people, I'm going to trust you, because this is the first interview I do. And if this comes out, I'll know exactly who spilt the beans.
Definitely not. Definitely not.
Otherwise, I will get shouted at by the promoter and my agent and the tour manager and our manager. And we are
coming out Monday. I promise it won't come out before Monday. All right.
We're coming in February.
Beautiful.
We are playing Sydney, Melbourne, Adelaide, Perth, and Brisbane. And we are you have no idea how excited we are. I mean, we were supposed to come over during COVID with Simple Minds.
I had tickets for that.
Postponed and postponed. But yeah, it got postponed 3 times and then cancelled. Yeah. The problem is we're so far away from you, and the transportation costs are just ridiculous. Freighting equipment is ridiculous, and we need specific equipment. It's not like we can just go and rent some Marshall backline and carry our guitars. So we have to have a promoter who believed in us enough to offer us enough money to come and not lose a fortune. We're not making any money. Trust me, Sandro, we're not making any money on this. We're literally just coming because we owe it to the Australians to come and play for you.
And all your Australian fans will be very grateful. And I mean, hopefully you can bring some merch, and hopefully you can bring some records, some Baja Case Stair records, and
we'll see. Yeah, I mean, we'll see. We'll see. I mean, we have to rely on having a guarantee. If we get more than the guarantee, then okay, that's great. But the most important thing is that, you know, anybody who finds out about the gigs, please come and see us, because, you know, we are just about breaking even on this. I think we're probably losing a little bit, but we're hoping, as you say, maybe merch will balance us. We're taking a chance on this. In the end, I just said to our manager, I just said, I know, no, you're not going to earn any money. We're not going to earn any money, but we cannot leave Australia any longer. We've got to find a way to get down there. And so this is the most important short tour we've ever done in decades, because we owe it to the people in Australia to come and play.
We're all very grateful, and we're all looking forward to it. Is it Destroy All Lines who's bringing you out? I think
that's correct. Yeah, that's
okay.
correct. And we're really grateful for them to you know, put their hand in their pocket and say, come on, we will guarantee that we will give you this. And it's, you know, people think that, you know, because we've been around a long time, that, oh, well, they must be all multimillionaires and they can afford to lose a few $100,000 by coming to Australia. They owe it to us. We can't, because we have to pay everybody, and it's quite difficult. But it's, you know, it's not about the money. It's if we can make it work, and we're making it work, we're going to be there in February. And it's just,
I'm glad you've chosen to come during the summer.
when we put it on social media last week, it was one of the most responded to posts we'd ever put up, because, you know, thousands of people had been waiting. I mean, the good sign is the number of people who have already signed up to get onto the ticket buying platform is really exciting. We are really, this is important to us.
Yeah, no, definitely.
You know, we have been thank you. Well, do you know what? We've just been frustrated, and every time we put a post up about a concert, we get so many people from Australia going, and when are you coming here?
Well, I think
it looks great. Everybody's having a great time. When are you coming here?
If I'm being honest with you, I think the reason why fans like me and others get disappointed and upset is that we see, and these are all great acts, and I've seen a lot of them myself. We see the likes of Devo, Simple Minds, Human League come through town, and we all want to know, why isn't OMD coming through town? That's who we want to see. And no disrespect to those artists, because I love those artists too.
Yeah,
but it's
do you know what? It's quite simple. Had we been able to come back and play in the 90s or 15 years ago when we reformed, people would know. And again, I sound big-headed, but, you know, we work hard to be the best we can be. People would know that we deliver a really great live show. Nothing's dialed in. We kick ass on stage. And once people have seen us, they come back. But of course, Australia hasn't seen us for 40 years. So we have to absolutely convince people that we can be trusted to deliver an amazing show. Simple Minds have been touring for years. You know, New Order have come round, Pet Shop Boys have come round, Human League have come round. So Devo, we just needed a great promoter who would take a chance on us, and Destroy All Lines have done that, and we thank them hugely. And so they've taken a chance, we've taken a chance, and we're begging the Australians to come and see us now and make it worth everybody's while so we can come back again.
Yes, please, 100%. Just because I'm running out of time.
So you can hear some of the album tracks next time.
Yes, indeed. Indeed, some of the album tracks. Yeah, some quick questions for you. So OMD have sold over 40 million records in total, with sales of 15 million albums and 25 million singles as of 2019. You've achieved 14 top 20 entries on the UK albums chart. You've been described as one of the most influential synth pop acts in history. You've been cited as an influence and inspiration by the likes of Neil Tennant, Vince Clarke, Duran Duran, Frankie Goes to Hollywood, Howard Jones, Men Without Hats, China Crisis, Tears for Fears, Ricky Wilde, New Order's Bernard Sumner. The list goes on and on. In writing in your biography in 2018, one of your heroes, Kraftwerk's Carl Bartos, asserted, magnificent melodies of Andy and Paul are actually very reminiscent of Italo folk music, the very music Puccini absorbed. That's a world's a better place with their music in it. Of course, Kraftwerk were musical heroes of yours. So when you take into account all the commercial success, artistic praise, and acknowledgement from your peers and heroes, how does that make you feel looking back on your career?
It's beautiful. You know, I mean, when you start out swimming against the tide, as Paul and I did, I mean, not even our mates particularly liked what we were doing. They were like, "That's not music. What are you doing?" They were all into guitars. So when we started out as a dare, I mean, we were just going to do one gig. You know our history. We were going to do one gig at Eric's Club in Liverpool, and then we could say we've done it. And then I was going to go to art college, and Paul was going to go to electronics college. All this time later, when people say, "Oh, they're iconic and they change the musical landscape, and some of these songs will be classics forever, and they've earned their place in the pantheon of musical history," we were like, "Well, that dare was worth doing, wasn't it?" We had no idea what was going to happen, but it's very, very nice when people say wonderful things about you. But it's a pressure, because again, I come back to, it means we have to live up to it. When we get out there on stage, what we can see that our age demographic has changed. I bet you when we get to Oz, it's not just 50 and 60-year-olds watching us.
Not just because people like me.
And me. In this postmodern era, everything's been detonated. There's nothing new. People are just looking at genres. That's a great, and people say, "Oh, well, they're iconic in that genre." They did something important. So we see now quite a lot of younger people going, "Okay, well, bands we like quote you as being influential. Impress us then. Come on." So we have to deliver,
Yeah. Well, I'm sure you will. Because I'm running out of time here, I've got a bunch of questions, and maybe when you come to Australia, we can do another interview if you like, if you're up for it. But did you ever get to meet John Hughes when
Yes.
You did? Okay.
Do you want to know them? Do you want me to expand upon that?
well. So yes, you did get to meet him. Was he a good experience for you?
I mean, listen, the amazing thing with John Hughes is, we had seen the effect that having Don't You Forget About Me had upon Simple Minds' career in America after The Breakfast Club came out. And we were in a fairly similar situation. We were very big in Europe and other places, but we couldn't get arrested in America. We couldn't get on the mainstream radio stations. Therefore, we couldn't have a hit. So suddenly, John Hughes asks us to write a song for his Pretty in Pink movie, and we're like, hell yes, we're doing that. I don't know if you know the complete story, but we wrote a totally different song.
Yeah, I was reading.
We wrote a song called Goddess of Love, and then we get to America armed with our tape to mix it, and he goes, "Listen, guys, we've changed the end of the movie. I'm really sorry, but can you write me another one, because your lyrics don't make sense? We've completely changed the end of the movie round." And so, yeah, we had a day to go into a studio with no equipment, because our equipment was flying into San Francisco and we were in LA. And we hired a bunch of stuff, and we just went in and we wrote If You Leave off the top of our heads in one day. And it became the biggest hit we've ever had in America. But I think the interesting thing, John Hughes movies have a real strong cultural niche in American psychology. And I think particularly If You Leave seems to sit with a lot of people, because it's a prom song, and every American kid has graduated through a prom. And so this song is just equated with a kind of a watershed in life, where you leave school and go on to whatever you do after school. And it's for us, I get asked about it a lot. And one of the things I thought recently is, I suddenly had an epiphany and went, I know why John Hughes chose so many English bands for his soundtracks. Because all of his songs.
Yep.
What, are we about to lose the link?
We're about to lose the link, so I'd like to thank you.
All of his songs are about outsiders, so he chose outsider music. So yeah,
I'd like to thank you for your time. I look forward to seeing you in Australia in February, and I look forward to the pre-sale coming out, and hopefully we can catch up with you when you're in Australia. I thank you for your time today. It's been a real pleasure and an honor to chat to you and hear some of the stories about Baja Staircase touring, and I look forward to seeing you in the flesh.
Love talking to you. See you when we get there in February.
Okay.
Thanks, Sandro.
Bye.
Bye.